On behalf of ISB and ISB Institute of Data Science, I really want to thank the AI Impact Summit team and METI for giving us an opportunity to discuss a very interesting topic, that is responsible quantum and AI security, governing trust risk resilience in the next computing era. We are meeting at a defining technology inflection point. Artificial intelligence is scaling at an unprecedented rate. Around 78% of the organizations globally are using AI in at least one business functions. Global AI market is projected to exceed around 1.8 trillion by 2030. In India, around 89% of the enterprises use AI in operations. At the same time, with the evolution of technology, we have also seen rise in the cyber crimes. And at the same time, we see quantum computing is moving steadily from research laboratories into strategic deployment conversations with technological giants and like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all working in this particular space. The global quantum computing market is valued at around 1.8 billion to 3.5 billion as of 2025. In India, even the Indian government has invested heavily in the National Quantum Mission and has given a funding of approximately $750 million US. Now, quantum computing holds immense promises, especially for solving certain problems which AI still is unable to solve. For example, the traffic issue which is there. In fact, we all are facing a traffic issue today. So something we hope that quantum computing might be able to resolve in the future. A lot of in drug discovery, it has its application, especially in cancer treatment. So there are multiple advantages of quantum computing, even in the financial and the banking sector. But at the same time, even this emerging technology that is quantum computing, though it exists for many years, also comes up with its own risk. That is, it is expected that the speed with which the quantum computers are able to process information, the existing cryptographic algorithms which are keeping a digital system safe are prone to be vulnerable to this. And that is the reason most of the governments, especially the emerging economies, especially the leading economies like the US, UK, Australia, Singapore, everybody is working in this particular space in order to keep the digital ecosystem safe. But the question today in front of all of us is not how we are evolving faster or how we can evolve faster, but the question is how we can evolve in this adopting this emerging technology in a more responsible way. And that is it. With this, we have a very eminent panel today in form of Sachin, and Oliver. We have Vinayak sir on his way. I will take this opportunity to introduce a brief about Sachin before we begin. Sachin Kakkar is Google India site lead for privacy, safety and security, where he drives the mission to keep everyone safe at scale, building solutions that protect billions of people globally. With over 24 years of experience in research and development and engineering leadership, he holds 12 patents in areas such as online content classification, digital media assignment, and self-healing system. He is also authored 10 plus international publications. Prior to Google, he served as the India site lead for trust organizations at LinkedIn Microsoft, where he led large-scale trust platforms, spam protections at scale, and global compliance initiatives, including GDPR, DMA, and CCFA. He holds a master's degree in AI and ML from Georgia Tech and an MBA from IIM. A big round of applause for Sachin, please. Oliver works in the UK government cybersecurity technical standard team. This is a cross-departmental team from across the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, and the National Cyber Security Center. The team directly engages in global standard development organizations and collaborates with international counterparts, industry partners, and technology specialists to help develop key cybersecurity standards across different technologies, including on AI and post-quantum cryptography. I request you all to please give a big round of applause for Oliver as well. This is my question to begin with to both Sachin and Oliver. we are at an intersection of AI. AI technology is been rapidly, evolving with AI. Then we have generative AI. Now we talk about agentic AI, and then we have quantum computing. How important do you think quantum computing is for today's, and how do you think the intersection of AI and quantum will happen?
Yeah, thanks, Shruti, for having me, and really excited to see how this panel unfolds. So talking about how quantum and AI are coming together, I think each one of them has a path to come along, and each one will do its best, and I'll unpack it later. But overall, I believe that they're going to feed into each other and create a flywheel effect. So let's start with AI. All of you know that AI needs a lot of high quality data to actually succeed. And quantum is able to simulate a lot of complex physical systems. So if you talk about battery chemicals, in order to simulate that complex system, you need quantum processors to do it more accurately. So once you have that model simulated, you can feed it into the AI models, and then AI can convert it into energy optimizations. So that's one part of the story, where quantum is helping AI to get the data. The complementary loop, where AI is now actually helping engineers to actually design quantum hardware and stabilize that. For example, optimizing the system control, AI is actually helping quantum engineers. So now on one side, quantum is getting expanded because of AI support, then quantum is used to model physical systems, which is feeding back into AI. So therefore, it's creating a very interesting feedback loop, and that's why we believe that both of them together will create a lot of synergy.
So I come from a cybersecurity background, so I'm often the person in the room who's always the doom and gloom saying, all these systems are terrible and they're going to inherently have lots of problems and they're going to cause problems in the world. And I'm going to only partially do that. So it should be said that both AI systems, AI, ML, Gen AI, AGI, and also quantum technologies, quantum computers, we should be promoting them. It's great that we have a summit talking about this technology, talking about how we can make opportunities out of it, and because actually it will, for the most part, improve people's lives. There are opportunities there. It is good economically, financially, for people, for businesses, for countries. So I think that is good that we are able to promote that kind of technology going on. However, this is where I go into my doom and gloom slightly. There are still cybersecurity issues, problems on both technologies, on both AI and on quantum. So with AI, there are ways to, there are vulnerabilities within AI systems themselves that need to be addressed. There's data poisoning, there's prompt injection attacks, there's a whole range of different attacks that can be used to take advantage of various different specific vulnerabilities within AI systems that need to be addressed. And so the world needs to actually kind of come together and address those particular cyber risks. For quantum as well, there are a number of issues when it comes to cryptographically relevant quantum computers, which, and I'll probably end up talking about it later on, but it essentially will highlight vulnerabilities in existing cryptography, and will therefore kind of risk our own existing data at the moment. And it should be said, AI tools may help with some cryptographic discovery activities as preparations go for post-quantum cryptography. And AI-supported vulnerability research may help the development of robust implementations of PQC. But I'll probably end up talking a little bit more about PQC later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. Sachin, as Oliver mentioned about the cryptographic risk that will arise from quantum computing, we all are aware that the technological platforms basically operate at a very massive computational scales, and there is where again we already have cyber risk coming in, but with if quantum implementation, the cyber risk will be at more rise. We also see a lot of increase, in the, data breaches these days. So where do you see a realistic, convergence in terms of, how PQC could be integrated, or quantum computing in AI, in model training or cryptographic optimization or simulations in the existing, technological platforms?
Got it. Yeah. Thanks, Shruti. First of all, I agree. I think in the post-quantum world, the current encryption will not work, and that's a real concern that we face. So a lot of people, when we talk about migration into the new world, they think of it as flipping a big switch. So you move from one world to the new world. But at Google, our thinking is it's more like reinforcing a building like this one, where people are still sitting inside it. What I mean is creating a hybrid, layered encryption, where you already have a classic encryption of today, followed by the post-quantum resistant techniques as a safety net. So I think the real challenge that we are seeing is attackers are taking the current data, encrypted data, and storing it for later. When once the quantum processors are there, they will be able to decrypt it. So this is the real concern, where the long-lived data which needs to be secret for long run, is actually being harvested by attackers so that in future they can decrypt. Now, the way to manage it is to actually create multi-layered system along with the current system, number one. Number two, the other challenge we are seeing as engineering, in the post-quantum cryptography algorithms, the length of the keys are much longer than the current keys. So if the systems are not able to handle the long keys and they are optimized for current encryption keys, they will not be able to handle the throughput they have to face. So these systems have to be upgraded to be able to handle the longer keys, otherwise they will slow down. So that's the second challenge we are seeing, and we need to work on it as an industry. And finally, there's a NIST, National Institute of Technology and Standards. This is the one which is guiding us to build the foundational deployment as we converge both crypto and AI. And what is important is the focus is on the software, not on the hardware. Can we change the software, keeping the existing hardware? So like you asked for how to scale it, you cannot scale it by moving into a new hardware, because all existing hardware needs to be protected. So what we recommend at Google is to use libraries. For example, there's a Tink library. It's an open source library which provides the current encryption algorithm. It can upgrade itself behind the scene, and you don't have to change any existing system. So if the software upgrades without impacting the underlying system, without rewriting the tech stack, without changing the new hardware, I think that will be the best path forward to scale into the new world.
Thanks, Sachin. So Oliver, as Sachin also mentioned, the implementation which is there, requires certain, because organizations or the governments of different will also have to first make inventory of all where cryptography is currently being used, where all encryption, decryption, and what are the existing algorithms are. We have Rava ma'am here. A big round of applause for her, please. My question to you is, we know that UK already has a particular plan. There's come up with certain guidelines of migration, especially the timelines, where they say by 2030, they want all the governments in the and the industry to migrate to PQC. So from a national cyber defense perspective, if you can, add more on how UK is basically planning a quantum-enabled cryptographic, avoiding the quantum-enabled cryptographic disruption. And though I mentioned 2030, what timelines are actually shaping these transition strategies, and how is the quantum risk being integrated in the national threat modeling, and also is there any change in the new cybersecurity policies, considering the risk that will be coming from quantum computing?
Yeah, it's a really good question because this is taking up a lot of time across the UK government, but also across industries and across many governments across the world. And so that's why we're really keen to kind of get this message out as well. So just, I guess, I don't know whether everyone in the audience is aware of everything. I'm not sure what the baseline knowledge is here. So I guess, we've already kind of talked about it a couple of times, but just for those that are less familiar with the topic, a quantum-enabled cryptographic disruption essentially means when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, and there are lots of different quantum computers out there being developed and made, so we're only, in this particular case, we're only talking about cryptographically relevant quantum computers. When that is eventually developed, it will have the capability to break or solve existing cryptographic algorithms. That would allow an attacker to unencrypt data within seconds. And then have access to that information. So the primary mitigation to this particular risk is to migrate IT systems and OT, operational technology systems, which we've already talked about. And that is called post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. We simply do not know when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer will be developed. In the UK, we have the National Quantum Computing Centre, which acts as a testbed for the evolving quantum computing technologies. So we use this to get insights into quantum computing development. But every country is at maybe slightly different stages, and some countries are slightly more kind of secretive in terms of how far they are or how far they not are potentially. So for the UK, I can't speak for every country, obviously, but for the UK, we have set 3 key milestones that we expect government, UK government departments, and critical sectors within our economy to work to. So by 2028, companies or government departments need to define their migration goals. They also need to carry out a full discovery exercise, so that's assessing your estate to understand which services and infrastructure that depend on cryptography that need to be upgraded to PQC. It sounds like you're already doing that, which is good, and build an initial plan for migration. By 2031, we expect companies to carry out early, highest priority PQC migration activities. And refine the plan so that they have a thorough roadmap for completing migration. And then by 2035, complete migration to PQC of all the systems and services and products that they have. And so our milestones, because I said we can't predict when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer will be developed, our milestones are actually based on the timelines, what we expect for international standards to evolve. And we've talked about NIST already, but how we expect the PQC ecosystem to grow to support it, and how much time it will take most organizations to prepare and plan properly. So, the most important thing right now is for organizations to identify where they carry risk. So this kind of discovery exercise, a well-planned and well-orchestrated PQC migration is essential to avoid increasingly more generic cyber risks. And then I don't necessarily have much to say on the sort of national threat modelling part of the question, but in terms of the UK government, we have identified clear roles and responsibilities across relevant government teams to work with companies in the critical sectors of our economy to understand the threat itself, their own individual vulnerabilities, and to help them mitigate their individual risks through the migration process.
Thank you, Oliver. Rama ma'am is here. I'll just give a brief about introduction of Rama ma'am. She's currently serving as a senior consultant with Niti Aayog, and prior to that, she has led the emerging technologies wing of the Information Technology and Electronics Communication Department, Government of Telangana. She has been, in fact, responsible for implementing several innovative projects that use emerging technologies, such as Medicine for Sky, which delivers vaccines, and then blockchain for traceability of seeds and food products, deployed an AI pest management tool that has helped farmers to prevent significant damage across crops. Ma'am, you have been working extensively in the field where AI or technology can be used for the benefit of the society. Now, as AI scales and quantum technology matures, and we see the risk that is coming from, quantum computing, with both Sachin and Oliver mentioning, how should India position quantum computing within its broader national innovation strategy, considering the risks that are arising from quantum, especially for the digital public infrastructure, healthcare, and the governance systems? Your thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, apologies for coming in late. I was stuck in the traffic. I followed Google Map somehow estimated the time, everything, but Google also couldn't, forecast the traffic. And I think because of the rain, we were just going round and round and round, finally reached. So, yeah. So actually, before I talk about the risk, I just want to say something like, see, AI actually has sort of, being adopted in India, elsewhere, but quantum is something that is, while it's still in the nascent stage, as a country, we really want to, be ahead of the curve in this particular technology. So we are not looking at just, coming out with some quantum labs or something, but we want to make India, as a quantum ready nation. So with that vision, we actually recently, 3 months back, I think, Niti Aayog released a national strategy report on quantum. Prior to that, of course, you may be knowing, DST has actually set up the National Quantum Mission with an outlay of 6,500 crores. So it's essentially fundamental research. But what our report, Niti Aayog's report, focuses on is how do we actually, execute this whole vision that we are looking at and make the country as quantum ready. So in fact, there are a lot of other things that we have indicated in the report. The 5 key sectors that India would like to focus on, because we were talking about healthcare. So what would it be like, a quantum nation means for us? So while 5 sectors we have identified, starting from, defense, strategic area is one, defense, aerospace, where we can use quantum communications, quantum sensing, and we want to actually, come out with the navigation system that's currently there. So strategic area, defense is one. Second is logistics. This is another important area. You might be aware of the Gati Shakti project that the government of India has implemented. So using quantum optimization, to solve problems at the last mile delivery is what we are looking at using quantum. The other is quantum peripherals. Then 4th one is quantum banking and financial. That's one of the strong industry here. We have a robust banking system in India compared to any other country. So again, using quantum computing for fraud detection, risk analysis, and so on. And the last one that is close to our heart is, pharma and healthcare. That's one of the areas that we are currently focusing on. In fact, we are partnering with IIIT Hyderabad, to work actually to come out with a roadmap for 10 years as to how to make India a quantum enabled nation in the healthcare. That's what we are looking at. And why is that healthcare is so important to us? Just imagine, this is our vision, it looks fantasy right now, but we want to really, arrive there. So what is it like a poor student, a patient, a child patient somewhere in a remote village in Rajasthan, is suffering from a rare genetic disease. Right now, with the current technologies, it's really difficult to diagnose this gene-related diseases. But with quantum simulations, molecule simulation, you can actually identify, drug discovery can be accelerated one. So we can actually, come out with personalized medicine or precision medicine is what we are looking at. Which will, we believe that quantum simulation and sensing will actually accentuate or accelerate that drug discovery and precision medicine. So this particular rural, child will get that, precision medicine from a health DPI is what we are looking at. This is a vision at 2035, is a 10-year roadmap, I said, right? It is delivered again not from an urban hospital, but from the rural primary healthcare center through a digital hospital. So this is how we intend to use quantum to make it, Yeah, I'll actually come to the risk later. This is our vision, focus on the prioritized sectors and then leverage this technology to solve problems specific for India. Yeah.
So that's very well articulated, ma'am, because that's the need of the hour, where quantum computing can solve problems which have currently not been able to addressed, which is there. So to
By the classical computing,
yes,
algorithm.
Can I add something on that?
please.
I think just to reinforce Ramaji's point, I think one way to think about quantum processor, it's a highly accurate, super powerful scientific calculator which can simulate a lot of complex things. So when Google launched late 2024, the Velo chip, it was able to simulate or able to handle a complex problem in under 5 minutes, which can actually take 10 raised to power 25 manual years. So they call it septillion years. So imagine that kind of current supercomputers will take 10 raised to power 25 years, and that Velo chip was able to solve in less than 5 minutes, just one application, but it shows how much you can do in such a small amount of time. And drug discovery is such a complex problem, and I think a lot can be done using these super powerful calculators.
I hope Google can also partner in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, I'll just add, even in cancer treatment, especially the radiotherapy, also, in fact, quantum computing, there's a bit of work that's happening. And in fact, the Volkswagen cars have also, I think, partnered with Google. Sachin, please correct me in terms of, able to identify a correct route or a shortest path or an optimal path in traffic. This work is still in process, is happening, but the industry also understands the need of having a quantum computing to address issues and problems which are currently not being able to addressed. So even in the banking sector, we have there are multiple areas, especially in banking also, where quantum computing can solve interesting problem statements. We have Vinayak sir here. A big round of applause for him. Thank you, Vinayak sir, for joining in, which is there. There is a group photograph which the organizing team has been requesting. I'll request all the speakers, before I go for the next question, we can just have a group photograph. Thank you, everyone. So we, in fact, 2025, basically worked with the BFSI sector. We had around 180 banks and financial institutions participating in our project. And in terms of, they know that quantum computing is a need of the hour. It is important for the BFSI sector. But 70% of the BFSI sector CISOs and the CTOs mentioned that they have, very little or low or moderate knowledge of quantum computing. And 57.5% of them have said that in the next 3 years, they know the anticipated timeline for quantum computing to migration. And it also might, get in new risk. 87.5% of them said that they are also concerned, apart from the advantages of quantum computing, about the cyber threats arising from quantum computing. And their preparedness to deal with these cyber attacks is as low as 1 on a scale of 1:5, which is there. Sachin, we know that quantum computing is going to be a risk, which is there. But and we know that even migration may not be that easy. Even we say that we want to migrate to PQC. So what does post-quantum migration actually looks like? You think it will be complex for global platforms? How can organizations, because this is the issue that everybody is going to face, right? From the government to the industry, the the small industries, the SMEs which are there. How can organizations actually in today's world protect the long-lived data they have from the future attacks of quantum?
Sure, Shruti. I think this is a real concern that post-quantum processors can actually decrypt the current encrypted data. So I think there are 4 phases that I can think of. Start with the inventory of the data that needs to be protected. This is the data which is very sensitive, needs to be kept secret for long term. Which means they call it long-lived data. So if as an organization, understand what part of that data needs to be protected, number one. Number two, as I earlier said, create another layer of protection. Don't move to the new protection, but say current cryptography alongside the new post-quantum resilient techniques or algorithms. So that's the adding a safety net, second layer of that. Third, NIST is providing the foundational way of deployment of that software. So get the understanding of those standards on how to deploy. Fourth, use libraries and plugins rather than rewrite the entire tech stack. The moment you use libraries, they can upgrade from one encryption algo to the another encryption algo without touching the rest of the tech stack. So that way, security takes years, not months, to upgrade. You can continue to run your application while those libraries are actually upgrading themselves. And finally, once you have done that, the final thing is rolling out at scale. And that's an important part, that how you can make sure that the entire software security component is replaced without changing the hardware, without moving or rewriting your tech stack. While you do that, remember I said the longer keys that are needed. So therefore, keep an eye on your network bandwidth, your throughput and performance, the non-functional requirements, to make sure your underlying system does not slow down when you move to the PQC or migrate to the PQC world.
Thanks, Sachin. Vinayak sir, like that we have been working in this particular space. We see that all the technological firms are working very actively in this particular space, which is there. Ma'am also mentioned about the advantages and the mission which India has and how we can effectively use quantum computing. But we also see the other side of it, which is the risk that might coming in. Now, in the past 1 year, after we launched our particular report in 2025, ISB has been very actively working with the BFSI sector, trying to, make them aware of what is quantum computing, that's one thing, and the different risks that might arise and how they should migrate to PQC, or they should make their systems resilient to cyber attacks that would arise from quantum computing. Let me phrase it that way. Now, DSEI also, very actively works in this particular space. In your experience, how do you think is the industry or the government, because the data of risk is both for the government as well as the industry, how do you see the government and the industries, perspective about quantum? Because why I'm saying is, the BFSI sector, we see, okay, RBI ka guidelines abhi aana baki hai. So they're still waiting for that, So I just want to know from you, how you are seeing how the industry and the government is looking at this.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry for my late arrival here, owing to traffic. Until now, I think there was no national guidelines for this migration. DST published that last week. I was chairing subcommittee of DST, which is quantum safe migration, and this draft which was published, and tomorrow is the date for inputs that people can give it to the DST. And after that guidelines published, so the guidelines has two things basically. One is, once the guidelines published, this guidelines is applicable to all the sectors basically, right? And there are distinction the guidelines talks about is there's a general sectors and a critical sector basically, and the timelines milestone has been defined for that. 3 milestone has been defined for that, right? And once it is there, I think most of the regulators now would be relying their obligations mandate based on those guidelines, and that will really accelerate the journey towards PQC implementation, QKD. We are saying quantum resiliency, technology choice is your choice, not a PQC or QKD or both of them basically, right? So we see now, because of this, I had seen last 2 days, couple of banking industry has put up a policy for quantum resiliency basically, right? I mean, because they are members who we understand that. So suddenly there is acceleration. Just by draft guidelines, there is acceleration coming in this way, right? And then when we see this, so we are also seeing, and we are working with NQM being part of that, so understanding how this means for different sectors. So for example, banking sector is difficult to implement, but very complex to implement, but But the impact-wise, if you look at, the capital sector has much bigger problem to look at. Whereas you can implement it easily, but capital sector has this synchronization as a very important part of this basically. And the synchronization requires them to look at all the latency, performance and all these things much better basically, right? So every sector has an implications basically. So government is trying to understand what that implications in different sectors is. We are even trying to think about, and we are really put together something and with the guidance of NQM as well, kind of observatory where how we see different sectors progressing towards this milestone we define as a part of resiliency plan basically, right? So this observatory is guiding, will be guiding basically what we see in banking sector, capital sector, power sector, telecom sector for that matter, where they prepared and where exactly the challenge is basically, right? And while we this, there's also an effort of how exactly technology ecosystem is evolving to comply with this. So a lot of technology companies now committing timeline this quarter, next quarter, some of them saying 26 by end of 26, 27. So also getting watch on this technology ecosystem is very important, and what I think Sachin talked about, agility is very important. In this entire ecosystem, the way you implement it and way you are evolving so agility is very important basically. So agile web implementation is very important. That's another important area that we are also focusing.
Oliver, would you like to add to that? What is the pattern that you all have seen in the UK, in terms of the implementation of PQC?
So we've got some really good relationships with some very large companies across different critical sectors, and we're working with big companies. Obviously, Google is going to be one of those particular companies. So the message is getting out there, definitely. Some of the problems that we're facing is that we're not getting messages back from the industry themselves. We really we need to have that transparency from both companies, but also our international partners as well, actually, as to what successes are they having, what challenges are they having, what problems are they having when starting to form these migration plans. And we're getting that from some organizations, but it's not quite as transparent as we would like, in part because it's useful for us to reflect on and try to improve that guidance, but then also making sure that then we can then provide that advice back to them and then work with other companies in case they are also facing similar problems. So I would say the message is out there. Some good work is going on by some companies, but I think some other companies are maybe putting their head in the sands or just not quite engaged as we would like them to be, which is why panels like this is really useful to get that message out there, to keep on banging that drum.
Thanks, Oliver. So, Rama ma'am, we have seen that, responsible AI framework has evolved reactively. Like AI technology has been there. Then, with the IoT coming in, we realized, okay, there's a lot of data that is getting generated, and then AI algorithms has been used to process that particular data. We also see that, a lot of data is getting generated, but when in terms of data protection, we saw certain challenges coming in, and then we had the responsible AI framework. So we can say that it was more like a reactive thing, which is there. Now, in terms of quantum, like as you mentioned, we already have a vision for the next 10 years in India. So how can India proactively design or anything in that mission about designing a responsible quantum governance framework from the not just the Indian perspective, but you think can be extended even for South Asia or in.
Yeah, Shruti, that's a very good question that you asked. In fact, you're right. With AI, it was kind of a reactive thing, and AI almost matured, I would say. And then we started understanding its problems, misinformation, disinformation, fakes, deep fakes, and we came out with, now, I mean, still India, we did not come out with regulation as such, but of course Europe, US also did not come out, but Europe has come out with a regulatory framework as such. So, but with quantum, I think, once quantum matures, we may not have that kind of window also that we have had for AI. It will be so, quickly. So, in our roadmap, that's what we have indicated. What we said was, as, Vinayak ji was also mentioning, I'm glad that guidelines have already been come out with PQC, and it's no more a, hypothetical situation. All of us are aware that tomorrow, when quantum computing comes in, it's going to you may correct me if I'm wrong, so break the existing cryptography. So that's what we want to actually mandate, I mean, what the government can do is, can we actually launch national PQC test beds so that organizations for critical infrastructures, they can actually use these test beds and, implement the PQC. The second one is government need to mandate, the public sector institutions that have critical infrastructure to become quantum ready. So these are, I would say, proactive steps, not reactive ones. I mean, well in advance, not, once something happens, it should not be reactive. And also start migrating critical infrastructure early, like water supply systems, grids, and so on. That's another one that we are looking at. And that's what another thing that we mentioned in the report was India need to come out with its own benchmarks and standards. And it has always been, already NIST might have already come out with certain standards, but it's always like we follow the standards. At least in the quantum area, can we come out with Indian specific standards? So participate in the global standards, organizations as such. So that's a proactive thing that we need to look at, from the Indian side. Then while just like AI, even, quantum can also accentuate the digital divide, not just between nations, but even society. So what is that the government should do proactively, or India as a nation should do? So how can we actually democratize access through, like India mission is making available compute, to startups, researchers, academic institutions, and governments. So can we also plan similar thing for quantum? Can we make available quantum infrastructure, to different organizations, startups, students, and so on? And we need to actually take up national skilling programs. While these things, one critical area, probably Vinayak ji can answer that. I mean, again, I'm not a too technical person, but if quantum memory is going to extend the data lifetime, then the current data frameworks will not work. So what are those future frameworks that we need to work on? Data framework, as you rightly mentioned, those kind of frameworks we need to bring in. So probably Vinayak ji can comment on that. Yeah.
Sir, can you please add
Yeah,
on
so
that?
ma'am talked about so many things, and one of the important areas is definitely use of quantum by different set of businesses is a very big challenge, right? And access to quantum resources is computing resources is very important, right? I know there is a cost, significant cost, $2,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 per month cost that you need to incur, and there is also a kind of a waiting list for you. So one is what we are building as our own quantum computer, but there is also mighty recently thought about an idea to have this powerful quantum computer in India while we are building our own thing. So I think by September, October, we will have one of the significant powerful quantum computer built in SEDAC facility, which will be available to researchers on one hand, and other hand to the industry as well. But my biggest worry is real value chain come from the algorithms and softwares. So while hardware, it looks like a lot of things have been progressed aggressively at a pace in a global platform, but software and algorithm is our forte, right? And if that itself we are lagging, that's a challenge. In fact, we are working with government and industry as well, and with especially the user industry. If you look at HSBC, Global Research, they talk about what they are doing with the quantum computer, but we don't see happening that from Indian Bank or most of them. They're worried about security problem, but not like how to use quantum for some of the solving business problems or creating new possibilities for them. So we're creating effort. I'm working with RBI, SEBI, and many of those kind of regulators as well. How do we push the Indian ecosystem? Otherwise, we have quantum mission, but we need to create a market for those kind of capabilities as well. So that's the effort we have been putting from Data Center Council of India perspective.
Thank you, sir. We just have a few minutes more to go. And a very, the session has evolved very nicely from, quantum, the risk, the Indian quantum mission. Sir also added, the advantages of quantum, how effectively the businesses should start implementing and testing the advantages of quantum and how can be integrated into the business model which is there. So this is my question to all of you all, which is, as we know that quantum capability advances globally, okay, do we think there is a need, for having international collaborations, coordination, because we know the advantages of it, we also know the risk. In terms of advantages, having business solutions, how do you see international collaboration between governments, industries, that will help progress, not just India, but globally? How do you see that? Sachin, would you like to comment on that?
Oh, I think the answer is completely yes. We are all in this together. I think as a country, as academia, as industry, government, I think all of us are here. I think the way industry can help is sometimes we are in the forefront of pushing the frontiers and experimenting. For example, at Google, our internal comms are already post-quantum resilient algorithms. So we are already protecting our data. So we have experiments, some numbers along with us. We have internal frameworks. AI is not new to us. We have been experimenting with AI for decades. Remember, AlphaFold got launched like 8-10 years back. We were the first one to launch the transformer paper. So when we were building those AIs, we were also building security around that. And thankfully, industry had a lot of resources and people to build those security framework. And Google has been very benevolent in sharing those frameworks openly, free of cost. So Go/Secure AI framework is already outside. So we keep sharing those framework outside, publishing our papers. We are actively working with NIST, and we are co-authored one of the crypto encryption algorithm, which is now, I think, in the top 2 in the competition. I think the goal is to keep sharing with the world so that rest of the country, academia, they can adopt, and we can be the partners with academia to make sure we provide the right set of environment, resources, so that we can experiment together, publish the latest research together.
Oliver, how do you see India, UK collaborating in this particular space?
Yeah, imagine if I came out and said, no, we shouldn't collaborate. No, clearly the best method is to collaborate, both UK and India, but also every country. As you said, we are in this together. It's a global opportunity and risk for both the public sector and the private sector. I guess in terms of my own bread and butter, the work that I tend to specialize on in international standards, I think there should be more alignment and engagement from across different countries and companies on standards. We talked about the NIST standards, but from the UK side, the UK National Cybersecurity Centre has participated in a number of standards bodies for quite a few years. And IETF, the Institute for Engineering Task Force, or no, Internet Engineering Task Force, something along those lines, the IETF, it has been working on protocol standards to support the NIST standards, and ETSI, which stands for the European Telecommunications Standards Institute, which is a global standards body. It's not just Europe-based, it is a global standards body. That's been working on standards for the implementation of all of this. And so kind of contributions from cybersecurity and cryptographic expertise from across the globe in the private sector and the public sector would be incredibly valuable in those standards bodies, and looking at the work that's going on the standard side, as that makes the internet, it makes global citizens and organizations who use it more secure. Migration to PQC is a global scale and multi-year challenge underpinned by the kind of standards for algorithms, protocols, and systems. So that is exactly why we need to be kind of working together. So we would, from a UK government perspective, we would very much encourage others who are interested in this work, both from government and private sector, to be involved with those relevant bodies to contribute to the security of those kind of emerging technology standards. And it should be said that there are some differences in the details of the approach to deploying PQC across different nations, and that is fine. That doesn't matter so much, because as long as you are working in a standards compliant way, then that's all that is really required at that stage, and then you can kind of do your own kind of national level of implementation based on your own market conditions. So yeah.
Rama, your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, the kind of the standards
Yeah, I mean, frontier technologies always, for them, collaboration partnerships are the key in any technology area. If you look at both national and global partnerships. So if you look at the Andhra Pradesh Quantum Valley Corporation that they've set up, this is in partnership with the industry, IBM, then TCS, and I think L&T. So I mean, government alone will not be able to, come out with either, or work on solutions or infrastructure or in any technological area. So in fact, Oliver covered everything, I think, and Sachin both together. He covered standards and Sachin covered, broader areas of partnership, what we can get from each other, like industry, then research organizations also are the key. In fact, NQM I mean, whatever funding that it's giving to the research organizations, they're going to come out with products, quantum products. So another area that we can look at, or we should look at, in terms of global partnership is, now we are having a couple of startups that are, upcoming in quantum. So how do we actually give them market access globally? That's one area of partnership that we need to really work on. How do we create demand as, Vinayakji said, while they're developing, where is the demand for that within India and outside? So that's what access to market, access to funding. Probably we need to set up a national quantum accelerator in partnership with, all the stakeholders.
So, Vinayak sir, how do you see international collaboration?
Yeah, so,
we have Quad, where India, Australia,
each of them
how do you see
talked about the areas, but we work with Niti Aayog on a national security implication of quantum technology, and our worry is once they start reaching to that level, it will probably in wells of secrecy, because a lot of geopolitics is associated with quantum technology, right? So nations need to work together from the national security perspective, because there's a profound advantage that a country would have if they have this capability early in the game, basically, right? And I think from the national security perspective or overall global security perspective, that discussion needs to be carried out, because we will not know if any country, especially adversarial country, has this powerful quantum computer in place or not, basically. How we create a transparency in that area, and how do you cooperate in such a way that this is a technology which is not used for any destructive purposes. I think that is very important agenda for.
Yeah, just to add, probably we need to have a global framework, for on the use
global
of quantum.
responsible quantum application framework. Yeah, very rightly said. We have almost done and time's up. I just want to thank all the speakers for a wonderful discussion, in the space of quantum computing and how responsibly quantum can be adopted, not just by India or UK, but globally, what can be done. We know that technology will keep emerging. We have learned from history that it's very important that we adopt technology in a very responsible way. The real leadership challenge before us is not just quantum supremacy, but having quantum applications more responsibly. So thank you everyone, and I really want to thank the organizers, for giving us this particular opportunity to discuss on this very interesting topic.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. We have a small token of appreciation. This is on behalf of the AI Impact Summit team.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this session.
So thank you, everyone. So I would like to thank all the speakers of this particular session.